Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time on Doctor Who Classic, we had the War Machines. What was that one about?
Well, an interesting premise. Again, for 1966, it's about they're trying to link up the big computer there in Great Britain with computers around the world, and it becomes somewhat sentient, and it tries to start controlling people, and the War Machines are basically just big, clumsy versions of the Daleks with, chopping arms and some kind of... What was their beam? Some kind of...
They had it was basically a fire extinguisher that could knock out people.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
So, it all, completely falls apart. They trap one of the War Machines, and the Doctor reprograms it, and it blows up the original. And at the last minute, we find out that Dodo, who had been sent off to rest with her aunt or something like that, said, "Oh, by the way, Doctor, I'm not coming back." And was it a sailor or a soldier?
It was a sailor.
Ben, and the secretary to the doctor who had invented the AI machine, Polly, who we met while they were in a disco.
Yeah.
I mean, the more we say this, the more absurd it sounds. But for some reason, that's right, they forgot to return Dodo's key. And so they go back to the TARDIS, and they open it up, and they walk inside just as it takes off.
So kind of stowaways like with Ian and Barbara, or with Steven, because when they left that planet, they didn't know Steven was on board. He just somehow managed to get in before they left. So, in one fell swoop, we have lost both Steven and Dodo, and now we have Ben and Polly. And now we are on to Season 4, with... of course, the only thing fitting we can have is a completely missing serial. So, and of course, it's the first episode of the season, which means that this is when we offer the full-length reaction for free if anyone wants to try that out. Unfortunately, this is the third time we've had to do this on a recon episode, but that's just sort of how it works out, because Marco Polo was a recon, Galaxy 4... I think the only one we've done successfully so far is Planet of Giants.
Oh, and that was pretty fun.
Yeah, but that was the only complete serial that we were able to do this whole free full-length thing successfully. So, if you want to watch this episode in full length, you can. Down in the description or to the pinned comment, there will be a link there where you can watch the full unedited reaction for free. There's no show footage because we can't just give it to you, so you'll have to sync up your copy of this episode to our footage. Made it as easy as possible. You can do it, and if you like that, and then maybe you should consider signing up for full length all the time, where you will get full length of every show that I do, and it's quite a lot on here actually. So yeah, but that is pretty much it. So.
I would like to take a moment here to especially remind our fans in Great Britain, the United Kingdom, that today I am certainly going to invoke the spirit of Guy Fawkes. Remember the 3rd of November. We have just...
The 5th.
Yes, but our election was on the 3rd.
Oh.
So...
Yeah, but it's the 7th, so it does...
Yeah.
The days are all out of whack now.
Yes, somebody said today it's the 5th day of Tuesday. Anyway, the election here in the United States has just been called, and I will just say that we are pleased with the results.
Yeah, just called, like an hour ago. Like, they just ended it. Which is also, it's funny because on Wednesday I recorded a Doctor Who episode, and it was Wednesday, the day after Election Day, and I was like, I'm sitting here, we don't know. We still don't know, so this will be a little time capsule of I don't know, and now we're here, and it's like, well, now we know. And knowing is half the battle, according to G.I. Joe. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into this episode of Doctor Who.
The Smugglers. I wonder if this is set on Earth, or if this is, space smugglers.
Well, this is clearly the crossover with Star Wars, where we meet up with Han Solo.
I have no control over where I land. Neither can I choose the period in which I land in.
This is always awkward to explain to new people.
You see that scanner? That is what I call a scanner up there. We get a very good view from the outside.
You see that scanner? I call it a scanner.
I really thought I was going to be alone again.
You've never been alone for the last 3 years, Doctor.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose I just had to chase after them. Quite incapable of looking after themselves.
Ben surveys the beach in front of them.
It's pretty easy to catch up. They'll get kidnapped in a few minutes.
Hey, look, it's a church!
So we are in our own time after all.
Yeah, he didn't really believe all that nonsense about past.
Because churches were only invented in the 1960s.
There's no more of ye than this.
No, just the three of us. You see, we are travellers looking for shelter. That gentleman comes from the 17th century.
I was going to say, the thee and thou, that's very Shakespearean.
Yeah.
So, late 1500s, early 1600s.
This feels like the same set that we had in the Time Meddler.
There is no beach. The tide will be in.
The tide!
Ah, yes, of course, I remember now. Yes. We have to wait until the tide recedes.
Lightning flashes.
We couldn't stay.
This really is turning into the Time Meddler, because that's what happened last time.
Guard thy tongue. Think only of thy comfort, and thy needs.
We only need shelter for the night.
Heed my words. Be watchful.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Depending on exactly when this is, this might be the whole last war between, like, the Catholics and the Protestants with King Charles, if I recall, or James.
We only want rooms for the night, my friend.
Strangers are not welcome in these parts, nor are they always what they seem.
It's more or less what the church warden said.
Doesn't sound like a good business model for an inn.
Probably put us up for the night. More likely we should probably land in the far distant future.
Oh, great. The way things are going, there probably won't be a navy when I get back.
Wow, he actually figured out the pattern he goes in. Historical, then future.
Just don't like it. They certainly don't seem to like strangers, do they?
Yeah, I wonder why.
Well, I wouldn't worry too much about that, my dear, because I don't think we're going to be here long enough to find that out.
Again, Cornwall, that area down there around Plymouth and all the rest, that's where Sir Francis Drake, who was originally a privateer, used to hang out. So this is huge pirate activity.
Speak, damn your eyes! Wouldn't be like you'd have got a David Jones silently. So I reckon we best get over that old fella and get our oats into him.
Longfoot falls to the ground dead as Cherub leaves for the inn.
For a second, I thought he was gonna push him onto the wall so the knife would just like keep going. Eek.
So the Curse of Avery's Gold.
So it's the Pirates of the Caribbean crossover.
At the inn, the travelers are finishing off their meal.
Doctor, eh? Well, Sawbones, speak up, or do I have to wake you? Don't harm them! Look!
Come quietly then.
And where are you taking me?
So much for Ben being the muscle.
Interesting how many clips of this we have.
Yeah. And they're all really good quality, honestly.
I hold you both to be knaves and rogues and of highly suspicious intent. And as magistrate of this borough, I'm hereby arresting both of you.
Arresting us? What for?
For the murder of the church warden. And for this villainous deed, you will be imprisoned until the next assizes, and there, punished accordingly.
You know, it's very easy how they get into trouble nowadays. Like, you just went to talk to a guy and suddenly kidnapped by pirates.
Well, by thunder, you'll talk to me, for my name's not Samuel Pike.
Let's see who the squire is. Again, he's got one of those faces that I recognize, but I was going to tell you the story of the cart. Many, many years ago, when Mom and I had our theater, we did a production of The Scarlet Pimpernel, which is set during the French Revolution, but it's about a group of English noblemen who go over to France and try to get the French aristocracy out of the country and over to England. Well, the very beginning of the show, the Scarlet Pimpernel, Sir Percy Blakeney, disguises himself as an old woman, and he's got a girl named Suzanne de Tournay, who is one of the aristocrats, and she's lying on one of those little two-wheeled carts, and Percy, as the old lady says to the guards, you don't want to get near her, she's got the plague, or the pox or something, so he's just about to go and successfully get her off stage. But somehow or other, the actress playing Suzanne wasn't positioned properly in the front of the cart, which would keep it down. And as the scene went on, this cart slowly began to go up like this, and she slid completely off of it. Now, the problem here is they have to get off stage, but the old lady can't pick her up because that will give away the fact that he's not, in fact, an old lady. The guards have been warned that she has the plague, so I can't even remember, but I think somehow they basically managed to scoop her, slide her back onto it, and then Ron pushed it back and got her off stage. But that was hysterical because I was thinking, they have set it up that nobody can touch her, and there she is lying on the ground. So anyway, so those kind of carts are notoriously bad for hauling stuff because if you don't balance the weight properly, everything just slides right off the back.
Yeah. There's not too much to say about this episode. This is kind of a basic, like, well, here we are, in trouble, like always, you know. I like that it's, you know, it does sort of remind me of the Time Meddler, where it's like, we can't go back to the TARDIS. Why? Because of the tide. And it's like, here we are in this sort of, I mean, obviously there's a difference of a few hundred years, but it is sort of a similar setting. Just that this time, instead of
Vikings.
The Vikings,
Yeah.
it's pirates now. So yeah, and also just the fact of just how quickly they can get into trouble. It's like they just went and talked to one guy looking for shelter. Suddenly the Doctor's been kidnapped by pirates. So, yeah.
But a very tight script. You know, there didn't seem to be any real padding in it. The only real criticism, and it's not really that much, is that Polly is so obviously female.
Yeah.
That I don't understand how anyone could mistake her for a young man. Now, granted, with her, you know, somewhat feminine voice, and if she were smaller, like Dodo or Susan, she might be mistaken for a young boy. But she's literally got, you know, past shoulder-length hair, and she talks like a girl, and she looks like a girl. And I cannot understand why nobody...
I'm pretty sure she's at least an inch taller than Ben is, too. Yeah. So the only thing I could think is it's just the pants.
Yeah, when she walked in, they never assumed that she would be a female because she was wearing pants.
It's just like they can't... Like, even though there's so much more evidence to her being a girl, it's the pants. They can't get over that. That's the one thing. It just does not compute in their heads.
But again, I love the idea that it's set down there in you know, the Lemin family homestead area. And again, this is the time of Sir Francis Drake. There's a lot of pirates in this area. Queen Elizabeth has passed on. So again, this is either during the time of King James or his son Charles. They haven't really talked about any of the national politics there, but it's obviously somewhere between, I would imagine, 1610 to 1620, 25, somewhere in there. So, and the costumes are great. Sets are great.
It's very interesting, the little footage we have of this episode, because it's like, well, first off, like, the way it's kind of like shaking a bit, it's like, this doesn't look like any footage we've really had for Doctor Who, but it is obviously footage for this episode. But the fact that it looks incredibly well, like, it looks like good footage, but it's just very short. Again, it's like...
I have a suspicion. A lot of times when movies are being filmed, and I would suspect on location for shows like this, people who are working on the show would often take like 8mm films of it. I know that there is a sequence from the film The Wizard of Oz that didn't make it in to the final print of the film, but there is an entire sequence that some guy with his little, you know, Super 8 camera filmed the entire, and it was a dance number. And so we do know that there was this song called The Jitterbug in The Wizard of Oz, where basically they were, you know, like the ballerinas trying to dance them to death because somebody had filmed it. So I wonder if there was somebody, because those were some great location shots, that somebody was just there going, hey, you know what, let me just film this, and, you know, maybe someday I'll show my kids or my grandkids that I worked on, you know, Doctor Who. So. Yeah.
Well, and that reminds me of something with The Shining, Kubrick's Shining, where apparently there was a scene that Kubrick wanted to take out. It was like one of the last scenes that he ended up taking out. But it was still there when it was originally released, like that first weekend in New York and Los Angeles. And after that, Kubrick called in and was like, hey, take this scene out. It doesn't work. And so the only way that you could have ever seen that scene is if you happened to be at that theater in New York or Los Angeles. So it kind of makes you wonder. It's like, okay, someone there had to keep that scene, right? Someone's just like got it in a vault somewhere. So
yeah, that's one of the big things. Piracy. I remember when like Star Wars came out. This is really big in the late 70s and early 80s. People who bought tickets to go see the opening day, also took in their little bitty cameras and literally filmed the entire movie. And then, this is of course before the internet, but then they would make tapes of it, the VHS tapes of it, and sell those on the street, making money. Video piracy is basically what they call it, and it's why now we have the FBI warnings on all of our videos that if you tape or try to distribute this and make money off of it, it's a federal crime. So.
Which makes reactions a whole heck of a lot of fun legally.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that also reminds me. I think it was for the premiere of Thor Ragnarok, like before Mark Ruffalo was doing like a live thing on Instagram, but he forgot to turn it off. So for like the first 10 minutes of him watching the movie, it was like in his pocket, and you could hear the movie like the first 10 minutes before someone like nudged him and was like, you still have it on, and he eventually turned it off. So yeah,
but I am enjoying it. I mean, again, very tight script. We don't know where it's going, obviously, but I mean, it's got your standard. You got the curse of Avery's Gold, and you got Captain Pike with his spear for a hand. So obviously a Captain Hook type character, and you got the Polly and Ben who are trying to figure out with just the bare minimum of information about who the Doctor is. I think one or both of them will finally come up with the idea that they're going to have to simply. I mean, Ben probably because he's the sailor, and he'll be able to say, "Oh, well, we were on this ship or whatever," and so I suspect that's where it's going. But we'll see.
It also makes me curious because it's like, okay, they just met the Doctor last episode, and they don't know too much, and this is their first experience with time travel now, and they're really not accustomed to it. And we know what's coming next episode. That the big renewal, the big regeneration's coming. It's like. They are not prepared, and none of the companions we've had could possibly have been prepared for that. But these two are probably going to be the worst off for the regeneration. So,
but again, the thing I like about Ben and Polly is they seem to be very quick-witted. As much as I love Ian and Barbara because they were teachers, they didn't seem to react with any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Originality, inspired lying. They never really got caught up into that. And Peter didn't do it. So, but these two, I'm suspecting that they're going to go, we're in the middle of this, so if we're going to get out of it, we're going to, because, again, Ben's a sailor, and she is a very smart young lady. I know they said she was a secretary, but she was secretary to the scientist who invented the AI machine. So I suspect they're both very, very intelligent. And they will find a way to very quickly adapt to their situation.
Yeah.
At least I'm hoping.
Yeah.
You had best start using your cleverness. So talk before I let Cherub have you.
Let me show him first, Captain. Let me give him a taste of Thomas Tickler.
He'd be a credit to your trade, would Cherub, Doctor. Touch like an angel's wing.
It'd be pretty morbid if the way the Doctor regenerated was they slit his throat, so he has to do it. Why do we have that footage?
I imagine that somebody just put that in from an old horror film or something.
One more word out of you and I'll split your gizzard, right?
Cherub nods and backs away as Pike releases him.
Just the gizzard, though. Nothing else.
You'll get your reward, never fear.
A share?
Your eternal reward.
Right.
Polly made a doll from the straw and holds it in the center of the room. Ben calls for Tom. Polly begins to sway as if in offense.
Oh, what's your noise for now?
Can you see Paul there?
Right.
Well, quick, Tom, open the door. Come in and help me. Quick, Tom,
Polly
open
begins
the
to
door.
moan, and Tom unlocks and enters the cell.
Spell can only work if we're held prisoners. Now, if we were free... Sir, I gave my word to Master Cooper.
Oh, quick, Tom,
Polly
before you
starts
go,
to
Paul,
move
your
again.
time's up this minute. Quick.
I'll do it. Wait a minute, sir. I'll free you.
Tom releases Ben's shackles.
From now on, you're one of us. Come on, this way.
One of us. One of us.
And nobody who crosses Pike lives to tell the tale.
Captain Pike.
Weird little cross there on the bottom of that knife.
Yeah.
There's more to this than we reckon, eh, Chubb?
Indeed there is, Captain.
Almost like a harpoon.
You and the Sawbones, both guests of mine till I return.
I guess with the little thing on there, he could, like, hit into someone.
Yeah.
Treat them well and kindly, Jamaica.
Well, then we've jolly well got to find the TARDIS too.
Yeah, that's not such a bad idea. The beach wasn't far from here. Come on.
As they start to go, a large wall plaque begins to move aside, so they hide behind a pillar. A cloaked figure steps out as he passes the pillar. Ben knocks him unconscious.
Do you think it's the murderer?
Not something to find out. Time up first.
Could just be a guy.
Why, you're being a fool. These men are villains.
Oh, come, lad. Do we look so black-hearted?
Time short if we don't prepare.
Aye.
You don't trust
Right,
these
this
faces.
And take our prize.
Stand fast, I say there.
Polly.
And you!
We kept tripping in, eh, boy? We'll have no more tricks this time.
Well, that didn't work.
Not any better at holding out disguises than anyone else.
Yeah.
Although they still haven't figured out she's a girl.
That's true. It's those pants, man. It's the pants that fool everyone.
Yeah.
So,
But again, the script is holding together. I mean, it's very fast paced. I'm not seeing any padding. And just a minor detail, it has been so long since I've heard those accents. You know, Ben and Polly,
Yeah.
it's a bit hard on the ear when you're trying to listen to them. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say, I really do love how Ben talks. It's just so much fun to just listen to him go. A little difficult, especially with like the quality of this recording, but I do really like it. It's just fun.
I think, strangely enough, it would also be easier to follow if we could see his lips moving. Because that way
Maybe.
we'd be able to, you know, in context, figure out what he was saying. So, yeah,
Yeah.
in the recon, it's a little difficult.
Well,
These gentlemen are honest merchants.
Squire!
Squire goes to see who's calling.
put your gun down, man.
Sir, you can take our word for it.
Their tongues wag over much for my ears.
I agreed.
Very well.
I wonder if Blake's a Puritan. He's certainly
Thank you
dressed
for
like
saving
one.
me from these
Yeah.
rogues.
Oh, come on, man. Tell me what the future holds. Read the cards.
Very well, my friend, very well. Be it on your own head.
On the table are 3 jacks, a king, and an ace.
That's very
Oh.
strange.
I wish they were actual tarot cards. Could be a
What
JoJo
do these
reference.
cards mean?
Squire presses a carving on one of the tombs and slides the lid of the sarcophagus along. The tomb is filled with brandy kegs, silks, and other
But you as
contraband.
worldly as this, eh?
I was gonna say, for
Tobaccos and
we're about to
brandy,
unleash the
Captain.
mummy.
Nearby, Cherub watches them leave. Like Nosferatu.
And that's all we get.
I beg thee, no! 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 Ah!
Ooh.
Fare ye well. Jamaica.
And I guess it must also help. It's like if you stab and you get the little thing in there, that probably rips out more.
But why not?
Yes, well, I know it's really difficult for both you to understand, but I'm under moral obligation.
Well, about what? We got no ties here.
Yeah, but it's this village. I feel that I might be responsible for its destruction, and therefore I must at least try and avoid this danger until Blake comes back.
Yeah, but you heard what Blake said. We wouldn't stand a chance against Pike's mob. They're a right bunch of yobbos.
So much for the non-interference.
My dear.
Oh, a right couple of nutcases you two are. Oh, well, all right. I'll try anything once.
See, this is one of those things where he doesn't know whether the village is saved or not.
Yeah.
It's not like St. Bartholomew.
Yes, my dear, exactly. Good heavens, what an imposition. Well, you are inspired. Come on, quickly.
Wonder what he was trying to say.
Is it now to be got by kindness? I will have my way, sir.
While the two men argue, Cherub quietly descends the steps behind them.
If I will, threaten you me with the rope. Then you shall stand with me on the
With the gun in one hand, he throws his knife at Cooper with the other.
On your fine skin.
Okay.
It's very interesting. Brian Hales, or whoever the author is, he's literally got 4 separate plots going here.
Well,
He's got the pirates, he's got the squire, he's got the doctor and his companions, and he's got Blake.
yeah.
And all of them are, in my opinion, very well written. I mean, it's easy to follow. And again, I understand that if I were, 14 years old, I might have a little harder time following it, but it all holds together. It's a good story. Can't wait to see the end of it.
Yeah. And it is interesting that now the Doctor feels like he needs to interfere in this.
Yes. When you started, I saw that look on your face. But again, I think the difference here is when you come to a gigantic, civilization-changing thing like the Aztecs or St. Bartholomew's or something like that, you already know how history turns out. But this is an incident where he's going, I don't know, or even the Time Meddler with the invasion of the Vikings. Here he's going, I never heard of this story before. I don't know if the village is supposed to live. I don't know if the village is supposed to die. So, given that choice, I have to do what I think is right, which is to try to save the village.
Yeah, that's true. So, but it does, because I feel like there have been other instances like this where it's like, okay, this is something kind of minor, it's not really huge, but even still the Doctor will try not to interfere. So maybe that could be part of, a character arc of him being like, okay, yeah, it's not a really huge thing, so okay, maybe I could go ahead and get involved here. So, yeah.
What's a moment's kindness? Here, give him this pannikin. Come.
As Polly moves to get the water, Cherub grabs her,
That's better.
placing the gun to her head.
Now, Sawbones,
It's a one-shot gun.
or the young lad dies.
He didn't have time to reload it. Riding hard, Blake is thrown off his horse, and it gallops away.
Well, great job, Blake.
Must wait for time now.
Tell me now what the riddle means, or in 1 minute's time.
Oh,
Find
Wait a
Sheriff
minute.
for me, wherever he is.
the dead man's riddle. The 4th guy's name was Deadman.
Not from such a black pig as ye!
A classic fight that we can't see.
Cherub grasps Cooper's pistol and fires at Pike, but misses. Cherub retreats from the advancing Pike, but he backs into a stone angel. Pike moves in for the kill.
For a second I thought he just happened to run into a statue that stabbed through
You'll
him.
not need prayers. I made a bargain with you, sir. Gave you my word. Don't you want me to keep it?
Aye. That sounds like the foolishness of an honest man. Speak on.
I wish to keep
Great
my
line,
side
foolishness
of the
of an
bargain.
honest man. Then starts to head back towards the crypt.
Put the kettle on.
Let's have some tea.
Still nothing, blast your eyes!
Doctor pushes him in. Pike staggers towards the doctor, then falls down dead. With the battle over and Pike dead, Ben and the doctor slip away.
Right, anyway, wherever it is. It can't be as bad as going back to them days.
My dear boy, it could be a great deal worse.
What's happened, Doctor? I'm freezing.
It's getting right parky in here.
Just look up at that scanner. We have arrived at the coldest place in the world.
Whatever that means.
Well, it's either the Arctic or the Antarctic.
Well. Oh. Well, that is the Smugglers.
I certainly wish we could have seen the version of that where we didn't have to watch it through the recon. Because, again, seriously, it didn't seem to be a single 10-second interval in there where it seemed to be wasted. I mean, the script was very tight, as was the direction, as you can tell from the dialogue. I did notice that there appeared to be way more cut to scenes. Obviously, they had filmed different pieces and then spliced it all together, which is something they couldn't do the first 2 seasons. So, again, Brian Hale's great script, a lot of fun, because it was a historical without being an actual historical, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, like there wasn't any huge historical figure that we really need to...
But we do know that there were pirates in the Devon and Cornwall area during this time period. It's great to see this is early, before the Restoration, but this has got to be either King James or King Charles, because we don't see the Cromwell army. They still have a militia. So this is, again, somewhere between 1610 and about 1620, maybe 1625. Great costumes, storyline, sets, costumes, the whole works, just absolutely wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Now, that said, I didn't actually write down a ton of notes.
Yeah, we actually talked a lot through this one.
Yeah. But I mean, like, even as good as it is, there is sort of like the sort of classic... I don't know, just sort of the classic sort of run through of it, and it's like there's not like huge twists and turns, but
I did like the 4 separate stories where individually they would turn on each other. You know, Cooper and the Squire seem to be together, and then Cooper seems to turn against him, and then this. I mean, so there were a lot of nice little twists, not huge, and again, to me, this was more on the line of being a children's show, you know, not dark stuff, not really incredibly bad stuff. It's a swashbuckling adventure. The Doctor and his 2 companions happen to get mixed up in it, and we enjoy the time period, we enjoy the little twists, and then off they fly to apparently the coldest place in the world.
Yeah. So, let's see. We can go ahead and hop into the notes on this one. I wrote down the tide at first, which again is just sort of our... It's like, we can't get to the TARDIS, you know? And again, you know, they reused that from the Time Meddler. Yeah. But that's all right. I mean, there always has to be some way. They're probably going to be like, oh, well, you know, next time it's like, oh, the TARDIS is frozen, or we're going to have to wait till daylight for it to unfreeze or something. So, it's also interesting, you know, we go through all of this, and at the end, Ben is like, you know, oh, well, I hope the next place is, you know, 1966 so that I can, you know, or else I'm going to be in real trouble. And it's like, but that's not how time travel works, Ben. Like, yeah, it's going to be a problem if, you know, we end up past, you know, the point that you need to be on that train or whatever. But until then, you're kind of fine. Like, there's nothing... It's not until you get past that point. Yeah. So
that was a real surprise to me when they sent Ian and Barbara back, that it was 1965 or 66, whatever. I guess it was 65. That they didn't send them back literally to the point where they had been taken. Because how do they explain that 2-year absence?
Yeah, they just kind of went missing for 2 years.
Now, I suppose they could say, well, you know, we've decided that we wanted to go off on a great adventure, and we, like Sherlock Holmes, we went to the Himalayas, and we went to Vienna and did all this other stuff. But seriously, a 2-year gap, and they left with no explanation.
Yeah, it's like you didn't put in your 2 weeks' notice at the school, you know? Like,
so I thought that would have been the perfect way to end Ian and Barbara, is to send them back literally to the moment after they left.
Yeah, so...
And didn't, what was was it the genesis of the Daleks when they landed back at the school literally the day after they left or something, because Susan's book on the French Revolution was still there.
Yeah, it was. What was it? I think it was Remembrance of the Daleks. It was with the Seventh Doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was the 25th anniversary, so they did that where it's like, yeah, they go in, the French Revolution is still here, like in this like laboratory basically. So yeah, it was very shortly after they originally left.
Yeah.
So it does make me curious, like if after all this, like, well, okay, now I'm curious, just where are we going to end up leaving Ben and Polly? You know, because that's the thing, we've really gotten some oddball places, especially recently. It's like, okay, yeah. Ian and Barbara, we were able to drop them back off in 65, and that's great. But Susan, we left on the, recovering from the Dalek invasion. Vicky, we left in Troy. Stephen, we left with the Savages and on all those guys.
And the super people, yeah.
Yeah. And Dodo, we lucked out that we brought her back to the 60s, but that was just an ungraceful exit anyway. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I'm very curious, where are we going to leave them? It's like, maybe somehow he can actually get Ben right back to where he needs to be.
Yeah.
But
it would be kind of funny to do a Marty McFly sort of thing. Actually drop him off like a couple of days beforehand, and he has to wait and watch his old self disappear in the TARDIS, and then he can then take over and go, oh, well, no, nobody will ever know that I was gone.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have to see. Let's see. We had the pirates and the curse. So there was a curse about Avery's gold? Well, they kind of mentioned that.
Yeah, they do seem to play that up, but then they don't really make anything out of it. It's not like the Cortez's gold in Pirates of the Caribbean, where there's actually some kind of supernatural curse on it. I guess the curse of the gold here, in this instance, would basically just be that, like all pirates, when you go looking for it, you're going to find trouble.
Yeah, it could be that, because even at the end, the doctor's like, oh, I don't want to touch it, and he's like, you're afraid of the curse, and so I can only assume that because he went in, he found the gold, and then you could say it's because of that the curse took effect, and he ended up dying.
Yeah.
So it's not a crazy curse, but, It's
not a supernatural curse. It's just, again, it's the curse that happens to all people who are pirates and villains and things like that. Do bad things, and bad things will happen to you.
Right. And speaking of supernatural stuff, we did have the voodoo moment with how Ben and Polly got out of
and
prison.
Again, that's very clever, because wasn't that her idea?
I think so.
And remember, we talked about the fact that because she was a secretary to a very important person, she's a very smart woman, and she says to herself, now wait a minute, you keep forgetting, we're not in the 20th century anymore, we're in the 17th century, and these people, we should be able to do some superstition on them. In Mark Twain's novel of the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, this guy is transported back 1200 years or however long, and he becomes a great wizard because he happens to know that there's an eclipse coming, and if I recall correctly, he has a cigarette lighter, and he can create fire literally out of his hands. And so that is a very popular kind of time travel thing in the especially the 40s, 50s, and 60s, as we're beginning to really get into the whole time travel genre. So that's very clever of her to go, you know what, we can bamboozle these people because, after all, they lived 300 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. I wrote down the Smugglers. So, now it's interesting, like, okay, so did the Squire always want to, work with these smugglers? Like, because the thing is, they are pirates, but they're sort of almost passing themselves off as smugglers, who are then passing themselves off as honest merchants. Yeah. It's like there was like a 3-layer disguise on Captain Pike.
Well, yeah, the Squire, interesting character there, because again, the only truly honest man in the whole thing was Blake, and again, based on his appearance, I would bet that he was a Puritan.
Yeah,
the fact that he's working for the king. And he's the tax collector and all that sort of thing. So the Squire's going, I got this little side hustle, I got some smugglers coming in, got the silks, got this. He's not getting incredibly rich out of it, but he's living a much better life than, say, the peasants around him. So yeah, I think that's basically it. And yeah, the pirates basically mean to inject themselves into that so they can make themselves a little richer.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing too, is just the fact that you said it's like, okay, we have kind of 4 plot lines going on, but they all just sort of stumble into each other. It just so happened that whoever the innkeeper was, Cooper. Yeah, he knew that the squire would be interested in working with smugglers, so he went to the pirates, and then the pirates go to him. They figure out this alliance. This alliance works against the Doctor and Ben and Polly, but then they end up finding Blake, who luckily Blake just happens to be a good guy working for the king, trying to work against the squire and works against the smugglers until eventually it all wraps up in the climax. It's like this stuff just sort of happens, and this is all still based on the fact that the Doctor just happened to go over and it's like, oh, we need some shelter, and the guy told him, and then that brings them into all this.
But again, what I like about that is that would all keep the adults entertained who were watching. The kids would have loved the pirates and knives and hooks and all that sort of stuff. So to me, it is one of their better written episodes. And again, I would be interested to hear what the fans' reaction to this is. But again, right up there with the Gunfighters, and I know people think the Gunfighters is silly, but again, it took a rather well-known episode and kind of put a little twist on it, made it quite humorous.
Yeah.
It wasn't as serious as it could have been. It was a little bit silly. But this one, again, has all of the elements. It keeps the kids happy with the action and the costumes and all that sort of stuff, but the adults like us are going, wow, there's like a layer here and a layer there, and they happen to bump into each other, and then it flips over. And so, again, I think Mr. Hales did a very, very good job there.
I'm trying to think. No, that was Donald Cotton. Okay. I was thinking for a second maybe Brian Hales wrote the Gunfighters, but no, that was Donald Cotton.
Yeah, that strikes me as the first time we've seen a script by him.
I can't remember, because last episode when we saw Ian Stewart Black and we were like, okay, didn't he write something just recently? Not only did he write The War Machines, but he also wrote The Savages. So he did 2 episodes back to back, actually. Yeah. So, but it would be interesting. This does, remind me of the Gunfighters, where it's like, okay, here's 5 different things that are happening, and the Doctor happens to be involved in it all. Again, for sort of small reasons, in that episode, it's because he just happened to be in Doc Holliday's, shop getting his tooth fixed, or yanked out at least, and that's how he gets mistaken. And here, it's just that he happens to be finding shelter, and then he gets caught up in all this pirate business. So that would be interesting to see the reaction, because I remember people said that originally the Gunfighters was not actually a well-received episode. I think, or maybe later on, there's when they do the rankings of all the episodes, I think someone said it's the Gunfighters was really low, but the Celestial Toymaker was really, really high. And we have the opposite reaction of that. The Celestial Toymaker was really not good.
One of the worst.
Yeah, and Gunfighters was probably one of the best we've had. So, yeah, I'd probably put this one up there with that one, too. Yeah. And with all the different characters, at least they are all, distinct enough, in the Gunfighters, Yeah. It's okay, Pike you could kind of view as, Doc Holliday and stuff like that. And it's just these very distinct characters, all with their own plot lines, Let's see. So what exactly was Blake's position? It was like a tax collector?
Well, I think they called him the revenue man. And in the United States, we disguise the tax department as the Internal Revenue Service. And in Great Britain, it's called the Inland Revenue. But again, the idea here is these are the tax collectors who go out to the various shires and collect the taxes and then take them back to London, because that's what keeps the government going. So, and again, based strictly on his character and the way he dressed, it struck me again that I think the average teenager, and certainly the adults, would recognize him as a Puritan, which would immediately say, this is a guy that, there's no nonsense about him, there's no guile about him, this is a guy that says, this is my job, I'm going to do it, and if I see anybody smuggling, up to and including the squire, it is my duty to report that or to arrest them and go get the militia, whatever. So again, just some very interesting details, historical details in a non-historical setting.
Not specifically historical. It's like, obviously it's back in time, and here's all these people from that time period, but there's no one like specifically a historical figure.
We didn't see Sir Francis Drake, and we didn't hear any of the other famous names of this time period. They never even mentioned the king. I mean, they talked about the king, which means it had to be either James or Charles, but they didn't say which one it was. So, we just know that this is in that early 1600s, and so that gives us a certain background, a certain milieu, I guess is the word, without getting too specific about it. And again, that is brilliant. That's a very interesting way of handling this.
Yeah. And again, we already talked about the Doctor wanting to interfere. It's also interesting, because I thought once the fight broke out at the end, that the Doctor would immediately head for the exit so he can get back to the TARDIS. But it's interesting, he still stayed and checked up on the Squire to make sure he was still okay, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, it's like because this is a not specific historical, it's like, we don't have Marco Polo here or anything like that. It's like, no, these are just random people just back in time. It is interesting that the Doctor would be more willing to interfere. So we do kind of say that it's like, okay, well, it couldn't work in something like, St. Bartholomew's Eve, where it's like, no, this has to happen. He knows this has to happen, so he has to get away. But it honestly almost feels like maybe this is part of a character arc for the Doctor, that maybe he does want to get a little bit more involved, even if there is a situation like St. Bartholomew's Eve where it's like, no, he can't, but even if he could do a little bit, that might be good for him.
Now, I don't remember who the producer was at this point, but haven't they by this time made the decision that Hartnell will be leaving? Now, whether they've announced it or not, but so maybe they're getting the writers to do that, to try to make a new arc for his character so that he can then transition to Troughton, and then we'll see that in the new Doctor. And people will not say, well, I don't like the new Doctor because he's so different from the first Doctor. So we're basically taking the steps necessary to get us to the second Doctor.
And that does make sense, because there are, oftentimes, especially like a new Doctor Who, when a new Doctor comes in, they are a direct response to the previous Doctor, and that's even true in classic Doctor Who. Okay, Hartnell was, sort of the grumpy old man, so Troughton comes in, and he's kind of a goofball. Then we get Pertwee, and he's a lot more serious again. So the same thing sort of happens in new Doctor Who, where it's like, okay, the 10th Doctor was also, he had a lot of goofy moments, sure, but like there were a lot of moments where he could get really serious, he could go really dark, and especially like when the Time War is brought up. So then you bring in the 11th Doctor, who not only still has the general goofiness of the 10th Doctor, but he goes almost like so much further with it, because he's almost trying to forget about the Time War, because he spent 2 regenerations trying to get over it, and now he is just trying to forget about it. Then you bring in Capaldi, who is, a vast departure just from any of the modern Doctors, especially Matt Smith, and he's, the angry Scotsman, with his blue box. So it could be that they're already, at this point, most likely, they already know, all right, in a couple weeks, we're bringing in Troughton, he's going to be doing his thing, but we should try to write, that the first Doctor has sort of had a character arc, especially since St. Bartholomew's Eve. He has had this character arc, and this is all leading into once he regenerates or renews or whatever, and that will be part of the second Doctor. Yeah. So that would be really cool to kind of see that. Let's see. So when Pike turned on Cherub, that was just because, it was like he left his post and he thought that Cherub was going to try to get the gold for himself.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just making sure, because it did seem like a pretty quick turn between the two of them.
But, there's that old saying, there's no honor among thieves.
Yeah.
So when Pike and his men get there and they don't see Cherub, the first thing you're going to think is, well, that guy's double-crossed us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And again, just a nice bit of character writing there. The guy apparently knows a bit about pirates.
Yeah. Granted, what he didn't know, or something, or maybe he just, couldn't write it in somehow, is how to properly write a pistol, because a pistol is a one-shot gun. You don't...
Yeah. And I'm really surprised nobody caught that.
Yeah.
Because once he fired it, he didn't have time to reload it, because that would have been a muzzle reloader. He would have had to drop in the wad and then put the ball in and then ram it down. So, no, he had no... After he fired the shot at the Squire, it was no threat to Polly or anybody else.
Yeah, and it sounds like, that could have been an easy moment of, maybe Polly thinking, just not even thinking about it. It's like, oh, he still has a gun, and, Ben or the doctor just being like, no, it's a pistol. He only had the one shot, and he's already used it. So, yeah, but maybe that's the actual magic in this episode, is his voodoo gun or something, so...
And that all happened before Pike came in, didn't it? Because I think later on, somebody picked up Pike's gun, I thought. I don't remember. Anyway, but yeah. But the whole thing with shooting the Squire, that's before Pike came in. So yes, that's a one-shot pistol, and he had no time to reload it.
Yeah, so that was a bit weird.
But again, what kid would have noticed that? In all that action... I don't think anybody would go, something, I think that's only a one-shot pistol. And so, we're overthinking it, I'm sure, because it's meant to be an action thing. But he should have had a knife to Polly's throat or something else, because the gun was, to us, a glaring problem.
I guess maybe, I feel like there should be like some older kid that would be like, it was like, I think that's a one-shot gun, or like a parent or something. It's like, there's no like... You can't put in a new magazine clip. It's like you only get the one shot. So I don't know. I don't know if we're quite overanalyzing that. So, the last thing I wrote down was the militia, which I totally misspelled, but that's all right. But that was interesting, just them coming in, and I do like it's like when it says on the screen, it's like they ambushed the half drunk pirates. It's like, oh yeah, I guess they were drinking. This isn't going to be much of a fight, honestly.
Yeah. So when they broke into the sarcophagus, the first thing they did was started taking the rum, and either Gaptooth or Pike, somebody got onto them about that and said, if you get drunk, we're not going to be able to do this on time, on schedule. So he said, forget the rum for now, but of course, pirates don't listen. And they brought that up at the end, that when he said, do you really think your men are going to not burn down the village? You think you have that much control over them? And he says, if they didn't follow my orders, I'd kill them. And he goes, so they obviously did not follow his orders, because they wanted to drink, and then they later probably would have turned on him and killed him to get the treasure.
Yeah. The only one who seemed to be like you really needed to fight was Pike himself. So, which he didn't use his pike as much as he could have in that fight. That pike was really honestly just there. Like it wasn't as useful as they kind of made it out to be.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I wrote down. So, good episode.
So, definitely the 10th planet.
The 10th planet.
The end of an era.
Yep. It is mostly there. The first 3 episodes are complete. The 4th episode is not, but it's been animated. Cool. So, That'll be that.
Is it the same people who did Scream of the Shalka?
No, I would imagine it's more like...
the French Revolution?
Yeah, in the Reign of Terror. I think it would be more like that. Okay. So,
well, anything so that we don't have to...
Yeah, I think...
watch another recon.
Yeah, I think a majority of... Because there's a lot of missing episodes in Season 4 as well, but I think a lot of them have been animated. So, and then after that, we're kind of off recons after that.
That'll be nice.
They got a lot better after Season 4, from what I can tell. But yeah, that will be the last episode of the Hartnell era. And maybe we'll do like a retrospective too, like talk about like favorite episodes and stuff. So, and the many companions we have had too as well. So, but yeah, that is pretty much that. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.